they can hear us now. There's the mouth. We're live. I like your intro today.
Greetings, my fellow Earthlings! Now that you've all seen the Barbie movie, you can sit back and relax with a hot cocoa and scone and listen to Jabber Jawn in the comfort of your own living room. No entry fee or service charge. I do suggest you be on time though, as there may be a surprise or two. You don't want to be in the kitchen listening to your children ramble on about how they saw grandma steal a shirt at Kohl's when you can be learning about the real world from 3 experts in the fields of medicine, science, relationships, handwriting, crime lab technology and fashion. This will be episode 32, so scratch that into your jail cell wall so when the warden asks how long you've been there you can say it's been 32 long episodes and you are sorry for what you've done. I've lost my train of thought, but tune in, turn on and drop out. Enjoy the ride, children! It's the 60s all over again. If your mom bursts into your room while you're listening, tell her you're almost 35 now and it's time you started making your own decisions. Fly like a bird. Attendance will be taken, but there will not be a quiz. This one's just for the fun of it. We hope you enjoy. We appreciate ya!
Three little frogs sitting on a log, one of them fell in. One frog said to the other frog, well, you better go get him. Two little frogs sitting on a log, one of them fell in. Last little frog, he sat and thought, good thing they can swim. Jabber Jawn, Jabber Jawn, Jabber Jawn, Jabber Jawn. Three little frogs sitting on a log, one burst into a grin. One frog said to the other frog, wonder what's got into him. Two little frogs sitting on a log, one laughed until he is red. Last little frog, he sat and thought, must have been something I said. Jabber Jawn, Jabber Jawn, Jabber Jawn, Jabber Jawn.
And we're live. Hello, folks. Good to see everybody. Welcome to Jabber Jawn 2.0. This is the pilot episode of the next season. And my name is Nathan Moore. This is Kyle Hogg. This is Steve Moore. And we are at your service for conversation. Wherever you're watching from, we can see you in the chat. Welcome to the show. And kick back, relax, and enjoy yourself. Bean says in the chat, just out of the gate, Kethra rocked the breathy Jabber Johns. Didn't she crush that? Jabber Jawn. It sounds so good. That's just the first rough draft of the new opening credits. I already have some notes that I'm gonna, but I was up till the sun came up this morning with the first rough draft. I gotta say, I could not have made that without artificial intelligence, and it really got me thinking about that, because you hear a lot about the outcry of how many people will be put out of work and how it's a threat to artists and stuff like that. But the other side, which is true, it's a very valid concern, very important conversation. The other side of the coin is how empowered so many people are to do things they could never do before. And I there's no way I could have made those frogs without a little help from artificial intelligence. And I feel like there's just as many people that will probably find opportunities and employment because of this technology, because not everybody knows how to use it, and there's all these kids out there that will be able to use the AI to enable themselves to do things they couldn't do before, and they can turn that into opportunities for themselves. There's just always the other side of the coin too. That it's such a miracle to me how how it works. I mean, I basically was in Photoshop and I was just like, I need 3 cartoon frogs on a log. And it gave me, the first option was like, oh my God, that's not good. Hit another one, hit another one. I was like, oh, there we are. That's that, and just, you know, and then it was a lot of work on my end. It's not just, it doesn't just do it for you. It just gives you assets to use to make the thing that you're making. And it was a delightful miracle here in the middle of the night last night as it was helping me make that. I was like, oh my goodness. You should have seen, we were trying to watch the end of the series. I was up there with a piece of paper and a cup full of pens trying to draw the frogs. You guys are so glad AI exists because my frog, I mean, they might have had their own charm, but holy moly, I'm a terrible drawer.
Wow. Do you think there'll be a Jim Henson of AI creatures?
No reason there wouldn't be, right? It's there for anybody to do anything they can imagine with, try to help them realize a dream.
Right. I don't know why. I just noticed he has a bird beside him.
Yes, he does.
What's
You have
that?
a bird beside you.
I just noticed that.
A real bird?
Well, sort of.
Oh, a bluebird.
This guy, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
What-
he's been there.
What can you tell us about this picture behind you there? Any memories of that?
That's just one of the original First Baptist Church. It's photo ops that you go down there and you get dressed, put on your Sunday clothes, and the family gets their picture.
Oh, y'all
taken.
did that at church?
Well, it was for the church. The church sponsored it.
I see.
In other words, the church families, and then thered be a book of all the families, and that was back in those days.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents were faithful church goers at First Baptist, and that's my little brother. And I guess Vicky is, she was in high school then. She was probably in college by then. She was probably away at college.
Oh, Vicky's the oldest?
Vicky's 3 years older than me.
Oh, I always forget that.
Yeah. How old do you think I can't really see that good. Does that look like me, like sophomore in high school or something?
That sounds about right.
Yeah, that would mean she's in college.
Right.
But she might have been somewhere more important than us getting our picture taken. By then, she was too cool.
I guess now that everybody has cameras on their phones and all that technology is so different now that the family portrait is a whole new ball game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like you see, if you look in 9 out of 10 homes from our lives, and you look at the family portrait down the bottom right, what's it say?
Olin Mills.
Olin Mills. Olin, you right?
Yeah.
You got some
We
Olin
got some
Mills
Olin
on your
Mills,
walls. Olin Mills, that was where you went to get your family portrait done. They had different backdrops they could pull down behind you, and it was a whole deal. I wonder if that even exists anymore. Because even though everybody has cameras on their phone and everything, they don't have like the backdrop, just the classic, the lighting, just the standard issue family portrait. It's a great photo. It looks great. They got beautiful nature behind them, but I don't know. There's something aesthetically pleasing about the classic family portrait.
I like when you used to go to the houses and you could tell it was a photo, but they made it look like a painting. I had a couple of friends that had like the big Olin Mills, where they somehow made it look like a painting.
Whoa, I wonder how they did it back then, because that was before computers and stuff.
And I'd be like, man, that's a good painting. And then father would be like, no, that's just a portrait they have doctored up to make it look like a painting.
I wonder if Olin Mills was a Stanton business or a chain.
I have no
Like
idea.
some kind of national chain.
I had friends in high school that used to go. Actually, one of them's birthday is today, Jama Huffman. I have pictures of her and another friend. They would go like to Sears, get their do their hair up all 80s style and stuff, and go sit, in those little poses they made you be in. It'd be like they probably were drinking or something. Like, let's get dressed up and have a picture taken at Sears.
Oh, those got to be good. Those got to be good. Yeah.
I wonder how do they do class pictures now? Because it used to be you would like burst into tears when you saw it in your yearbook because you were like, why'd they pick that picture? Now I wonder if they just show you like 100 of them and say, which one do you like best?
Oh, right.
It used to
Right,
be
'cause
you
don't
just
have to worry about conserving the film or
Right.
whatever. It used to be you get what you get.
Yeah,
It's like your driver's license photo.
they would take 3 and move on, whoever's next in line.
I bet they still keep it as simple as possible.
I don't think they give you choices of
Right.
100 like that. No.
Right.
It was always nice though they would cover up all your acne and stuff though. That was always, you'd be like, I don't remember having a clean face as a junior in high school. Oh yeah, you were a handsome young man, never had a zit in your life. Like whose job was that? Just whitewash everybody's face out.
I bet they still do it a similar way. It must be like a day at school and everybody goes down. I'm trying to remember how that worked. If we were like released a class at a time to go get our portrait taken
Yeah, I
for
can't
the
remember
yearbook.
either.
Clutch says they used to mail you the proofs and charge you if you didn't mail the extra proofs back. What do they want with them? Now it's probably all done online. Yep. You probably get a few options online.
God, imagine that job for a living, going to school, taking pictures of kids that didn't want their pictures taken. Oh, man. All the girls you've never seen in a dress your entire life are sitting there in like some gown type thing.
What a job too. The Olin Mills photographer always had a good task or whatever. I just picture him with the thing connected to the camera so he could step aside.
Oh, yeah.
And then trying to get the baby to look. The baby is all, there's a talent there to taking the great family portrait.
Every once in a while, I'll see one like on Facebook or YouTube or something like the really bad family photos where they're all wearing the matching sweatsuits, or like father's holding a big snake or something. What they like? What?
I've gone down the entire rabbit hole of that terrible family portraits. It's so good.
Oh man.
Was Olin Mills around when you were a kid? Mm-hmm. So that might even be an Olin Mills. Mm-hmm. Very similar thing.
Yeah, they like the church or the school would hire them to come in.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, that's who would do it.
It was always
So they
written in
would do the-
gold too, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Olin Mills. Yeah.
Well, I guess we should talk about the elephant in the room. You look amazing. What's going on over there? You're putting us to shame. You've really upped the bar.
Well, I had a couple things going on, but I heard this place you had fixed this place up, and you took off last week to work down here. I said, well, if it looks that good, I can just see how good I can look. So I tried putting in my teeth, and I wore them about a half an hour today. They're just totally disgusting.
Oh.
I can wear them, but I can't talk. Which is probably the way we want to go from now on. I was thinking that's probably the best idea I've heard yet.
You can't talk, or you just can't hear you can't stand the way you sound.
Well, the truth is, I didn't even say anything this afternoon because it hurt so much. I just didn't feel comfortable. But I think I could talk, but it would be like a mumble.
Mm-hmm.
And, but what I'm saying is that this is the first week, and I have to work on my. I haven't worn those teeth in probably a year,
Right.
so it's not fair to them to think it's all their fault. I'm just not used to them.
And your mouth probably changes.
Well, yeah, it has to readapt, and so I'm going to give it a try. Maybe next week I'll wear my teeth.
Yeah, I guess you'd have to, if you really wanted to set out to wear them next week, you'd probably have to wear them several times between now and then to train yourself, retrain your mouth.
But it's just a question around the house where I can spit them out when I want to, because I get gagged. And that's part of it. And I'd hate to gag and throw up and die right here
I mean, maybe,
on air. Although, you know, we're
Ratings.
yeah, I was
it's
going to
all
say
rating,
the
it's
numbers
all
start
rating.
ticking up.
well, I got to go back and what you introduced the show. Now, last week was number 31, but we didn't do it. So this should
No. The time before was 31.
really.
Yeah, because y'all jumped all over me for having 30.
So 32 was last week, but we didn't do 32.
Right, so it's this week.
So this is 32.
This is 32.
This is 32.
Yeah.
Gosh, I finally get it in my head. Now you start messing with me.
I'm
again.
sorry. I do that all the time. I don't always mean to do it. Sometimes I do, but not always. But
I was very proud of myself because I was like, I'm sure this is episode 32.
you finally.
But you
had
can always
caught
go
up.
look, check on the YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah.
You got to get into that fold.
Check before I think, before I speak, you mean? God, no, forget that.
So how do you write the I loved your intro today. How do you write those in the Facebook thing, or do you write them outside of Facebook and bring it in?
No, I usually get home, I get something to eat real quick, and I just sit down and write something up while I'm waiting for him to
In the
walk in.
Facebook post, you just click on post.
Yeah.
It's amazing how that works, isn't it? How the brain works. You just start writing, and then it comes.
Yeah.
And you just start flowing.
Yeah.
The flow. The flow is a fascinating thing, I think.
Oh, definitely.
I remember Rick Cook, when I was young, explaining it to me about, he called it the zone. He's like, when an athlete, and he was talking as a Buddhist, but he was using as an example an athlete, and how when they're in the zone, in the pocket, they can't miss. And there's just something about that. A lot of people call it grace.
Right.
To be in the zone, in grace. Any thoughts about the pocket? I'm sure. I feel like you can experience that with absolutely anything that you do.
Anything that you love and pursue. I don't. You know, when you can wander through the zone accidentally, but
Right.
what you're talking about is striving to be there and to work hard and to get there and to know you're there while you're there. Oh, that's really special and hard to, you know, that's what an athlete or an artist, you know, that's what you're trying to do when you're when a poem, when the next words just come naturally, or it's writing itself, or what, you know, all those feelings that you have about creativity. That's what we're talking about.
I always feel like when I genuinely experience a good amount of time in grace or in the zone, whether it's a good song or whatever, good playing or whatever it is, that it's healing. Like I feel restored physically, spiritually, psychologically. I feel reborn through the experience of being in the zone for a little while.
Certainly.
And it's like you say, like it doesn't come without preparation. Like some people say that there's this old adage that it takes 10,000 hours to master a craft, and that's like just it's just an arbitrary number, but there's probably some truth about it. You ever heard about the 10,000 hours? And it's like you say, before you put in that time, you might wander through the zone by accident, but it's not the same as being in the zone after spending the time to practice and prepare and become something that can embrace it.
Yeah, I was reading something about like if you could dedicate yourself, I forget what the time was, an hour or 2 hours a day to any subject within like a year, you'd be better than like 70% of the people in the world, because you just have dedicated so much time to it, to it becomes, you got the feel for it. You're not making the dumb mistakes anymore. But just and that sounds easy, but putting in 2 hours a day to something is
Right.
not that easy at all. I'll go to the gym every day. First 2 weeks you're all pumped up, then you're watching TV. Yeah, it's the dedication that it takes to be able to even get in the zone, really.
Mm-hmm. What do you have in your life now that gives you that feeling from time to time?
Oh my goodness. Oh. It's not that I really enjoy it, but at work sometimes if I'm doing some stuff and I just get going in it and it just gets going and like time just sort of goes away and I realize the work is done. Which some days I'll do it and like everything I do is like, oh, this is not that hard, but it's a pain in the ass. And then some days I do it and I'm like, man, this is done. You know, I was just in that zone, like you said, you know. But that's because I've done it for 2 years, where you stumbled through and didn't know what you were doing. But writing is I do that. Like when I write these,
Definitely see it in your writing.
when I do the writing thing, the hardest part for me is once I get going, it's like I gotta stop this at some time. I'm gonna be sitting here and this thing's gonna be like 100 pages long, because my brain just starts, because like for the song, you're focused on something, so it's sort of, that's a much more. You've got to stay within the ballpark. When I start writing these things, I just any path I can just go on it. So I really don't have anything even shaping me into, you can't write a song about the frogs and just start talking about rockets and Trump or whatever. You got to sort of keep it, which is I guess that's good because it confines you and keeps your brain from wandering off. But I'll be writing this thing just like, oh, you're in your bedroom, now you're in prison, and that, it's just like, all right, stop, where's the breaks for this thing,
How do you, like, you just today's intro, like, are you surprising yourself with where the next thing goes?
I'll crack myself up sometimes. I'll just be like, like some dude in prison, like 32 episodes, scratched it in the wall. Like, how long you been in here, son? 32 episodes. I apologize. I'm sorry. Let me go.
So good. How would you describe being in the zone when you were teaching? What was that? What did that feel like? Or did that? I'm sure that did happen, right?
I think a lot of things like that, I never thought about it as being in the zone. But I think it's just when you lose a lot of the things that hold you back from being in the zone, when those things don't appear and everything's just clear and you're just traveling through that and you're concentrating solely on whatever it is you're in the zone about. But, you just I think it's more like you catch yourself in the zone than you feel it, like you're going in and you prepare. I don't, with the kind of job I did, because it kept changing, it was in little moments. And I think that's a lot of what my zone's a little different than maybe, I guess everybody has a different way. But all the zones, when I think about my zones, are short-lived zones, like a poem instead of a novel, and a racquetball point instead of a set, for plays and moments, more than extended things. That I've never been very good at doing that long haul to get to that type of understanding of something to enjoy it on that level.
I think I'm very similar in terms of that.
So I feel like I'm short-winded when it comes to my zones.
Now, what did it feel like to teach a subject and then give a test out and you would read somebody's answer and you'd be like, man, I got it. Did that give you a sense of pride, or did that give you a sense of like, oh, you just see some face sitting there, and then you read their paper, and you're like, God, this person really understood what I was telling them. Was that a good feeling?
Well, what was the good feeling for me personally as a teacher was the question itself, not their answer, because their answer depended on them.
Right.
And I got everything there. I got some that already knew it better before I explained it.
Oh, right.
And but the whole thing is, did I ask that question, and when I read that answer, did I get my answer? And the answer to my question was, does the student understand the material?
Right.
So I was interested in reading it, but so I was very gratified if they explained it completely, because that means that both of us were doing our job,
Right.
and
that's
we
good.
communicated.
Right.
So it's all a question of success at communicating when you get down to teaching. So that would make me happy. But,
Now, did you ever get those wordy rapping hood people that would just write a bunch of stuff trying to make you think that they knew what they were talking about? You're like, man, this is 500.
Wordy rapping hood? Is that what you said?
That didn't-
He's not answering the question at all, but he sure is blowing off a lot of
That's a
steam.
He's a
lot.
BS artist. In
That's a lot easier to pull off in the English department than it is in the chemistry department, I'll guarantee you. That's all I can tell you.
When you take two chemicals and you smash them together, they
I got that kind of stuff. But, and that was the kind of stuff you were writing that day. You had
Good
a whole,
try.
There was a whole war going on down there.
Good try.
Yeah, you got it. You got some understanding of what we're trying to do here, but you don't know any chemistry.
But I think that would be a good feeling if you taught something, then somebody, you don't want them to just recite to you what you told them, but they explained it in a way that you understood. They've taken it in and,
Yeah.
processed what you told them and stuff.
Well, that's your goal as a teacher. So if you can accomplish that with a good percentage of your students, you feel like you've accomplished what you set out to do.
Right.
Definitely. I don't think a lot of people, I know for me that they don't understand the kind of work that involves in teaching in terms of evaluation. Because I couldn't stand it to feel like I was giving you a grade. I had to have numbers in front of me. I had to have, if that parent came in, those numbers were there.
Right.
And the kids all knew their numbers. Because I gave quizzes every day, and that's not because I'd like to give quizzes, but I wanted to know if they knew it.
Right.
Well, if you give a quiz every day, the thing you got to do is grade that quiz and give it back every other day.
Right.
And I was willing to do all that because I wanted to know. And I kept track of much more quickly
Right.
than a lot of teachers about. I knew what they knew the day before, and that was important to me. But there was a lot of extra work too. So.
Yeah. A guy I work with, he's a high school volleyball coach, and they cut players yesterday. He had to cut 13. He had to cut 13 girls. So he takes them in to have talk. And, some of them get upset. Some he can tell they're like F you looking at him. They're like pissed. They walk off. And one girl was on the team, and he's told her, "Look, you haven't improved since last year. You're good enough to make the team, but you're probably not good enough to play. But if you want to stay on the team, practice every day, you can, but I can't guarantee any playing time." And I said, man, that's sort of crushing to tell somebody. And he goes, well, you got to be honest with them. We're not there to baby them. We want to have a winning team. And I said, what did she do? And he said, she just was just looking at him the whole time. And he said, I couldn't tell her if it was like I'm going to show you type of look, or you're crushing me, but I'm not going to let you see that I'm hurt type of look, or it was he said it wasn't a look of acceptance. It wasn't like, okay, it was just, he had sparked something in her, and he didn't know if it was violent rage or the determination to try harder. But that must be hard to tell, people stuff like that.
Oh yeah, it is. I had to do that as a JV baseball coach, and all the players hit 600 in the Little League, and their dads were the coaches, and now they're coming to me, but there's 18 of them, and only 12 of them can play on the team. So you've got to tell 6 kids they got to go home, which I didn't. I would keep 18, and they would. I was a coward.
Well, there's a book. I have the book, but I haven't read it. It's some football coach. I got the book like 20 years ago. He's probably passed away now, but he coached at some small college. But anybody that came out for the football team, he kept them. and his teams would have like 100 and some players on it. But he said it meant something to the kids to be on the team, you know. And they weren't really like, you know, they weren't out to win championships or anything. They weren't that good of a team. But he said just to see these kids that have never been accepted to any team before and out there just giving it their all, you know. Because he said people that really didn't want to do it, they made the team, having to go to practice every day and stuff was, you know, they would just eventually wander off and stop coming. But just, you know, there's like just these kids that never played for 4 years or whatever, but there for every practice, wearing the uniform and stuff.
I can see the school board now. We cannot afford to suit up this entire team. Those uniforms aren't cheap.
Maybe they had to rotate the uniforms.
That was the one thing I did like. Football was my least favorite of all the sports I played when I was a kid, and I really I think I only made it half a season. I don't know if you remember any of that.
Yeah, I don't remember. You weren't. I think they had you in the line.
I had a lot of. There was a lot of fun with childhood sports and a lot of trauma. I remember it was not easy. I remember. I don't know if I've told y'all this story before, but I remember I went out for this little league baseball team, and I was a little late getting signed up for some reason, so they'd had a couple practices. So I showed up. This team was already sort of establishing itself, and I went in there, and I was by myself walking in, and the coach comes up to me, and he's like, "Well, he already knows what he needs. He doesn't know me from Adam, so he's like, do you like to catch?" And I thought he meant like, have I told y'all this story before on this? I thought he meant like, you know, run, catch, throw, right. You know, like I wasn't even thinking about the position of catcher. I was like, yeah, I love to catch. And he's like, all right, suit up. And I was like, oh no, oh no. And I didn't know how to say, oh no, out loud. Oh, yeah. I was like, oh, this is happening. This is happening. Oh no. And so he points at all the catcher stuff. So I know that this is a terrible idea, but I just go through all the motions. I put on, I mean, the catchers wear this incredible armor. You got things on your shin, you have to strap around, and then you put on this big chest thing. With each thing that I'm putting on, I'm getting more and more terrified as I realize, like, this thing is thick. Why does it need to be so thick? How dangerous is this position? I mean, with everything I put on, I'm getting more and more terrified. You got this big mass that comes over you like a jail cell, and you're looking through these bars all of a sudden. Next thing you know, I'm like, you know, this soldier in all this gear. And then he sends me over, and I kneel down behind the plate, and the pitcher's out there, and I squat down. I've seen people do it. I know what I'm supposed to do. And I put the mitt out there, and this little kid, he winds up on the mound. He hurls that ball in. That ball is flying at me. I dove away. Oh, wow. I just dove to the right. I just dove out of the way of the ball.
Man. So they didn't keep you back there?
It was traumatic. I mean, it was just horrible. I don't know why I went through all the motions of putting on all the gear. I was hoping. I was like, maybe I will transform into something right. I'm not now. I know I'm not this, but maybe if I go through these motions, I'll get down there and the ball will come in, and I'll just find I'm suddenly in my element, much to my surprise. But I was terrified the entire time, and I just worked myself into such a knot that by the time the ball was coming at me, there was no way I was going to catch that thing. I just dove out of the way of it. The coach could clearly see there had been a miscommunication at some point.
You said you liked to. I remember one of the little leagues. It was like my last year in one division, my brother's first, and I was pitcher, and he got picked to be catcher. And you know there was a time period. It was a.
Wait, who was the pitcher?
I was a pitcher.
You were a pitcher.
Yeah, he was the catcher for this 1 year we played together, and it was a time like I'm 3 years older than him, so it was I was just better than him at the time because he eventually became much better than me, but at the time I was still the bigger, better player. and he was not that great a catcher, and I would just sometimes I would get mad at him, but I was like, every time we would go home, and I'd be sitting there thinking, he's actually standing back there, focusing on the ball with the bat swinging in front of him and stuff. And I was like, man, I could never do that.
It's a lot going on.
I was like, he's got more balls than I do because he's back there, his hand getting hit with the bat, things, foul balls bouncing off his face mask and stuff. And I was like, man, that takes a lot of courage to stand back there and just catch the ball.
Oh yeah, when the foul ball comes straight back. I mean, there's a reason why you're wearing all this crazy gear.
Did you see on YouTube? I think it was a Pirates catcher that got traded to the Mets or something. He got traded to somebody. It almost made me cry when I saw this. Like, I don't know if the guy did it because the stuff just felt comfortable, or if he just felt like you're not getting rid of me. But he was wearing his old Pirates catcher's equipment with his Mets jersey during the game. So it was all like the team had been traded from's colors and stuff. And he's back there catching. I was like, is that just because it fit, and he felt comfortable in it? Or was like, I'll show you. I'm going to, you got rid of me. You should have never got rid of me. So I was like, man, that's, suit up and go out there. Everybody's like, man, I got the wrong uniform.
It might have been his lucky.
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking was, yeah. Because, the way it fits now, like it fits over around your, I mean, it's like a man-made suit or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a position, man. Those guys are crazy.
Dad used to umpire. You used to do behind the plate umpiring, right?
Oh yeah, I umpired for years.
Did you ever do Braves?
No, I did high school and college
College
baseball, and then I did softball. The most the hardest thing was women's softball. You got some rough characters out there, I guarantee you. Some of those catchers on the women's softball, they were intimidating.
So you did behind the plate some, right?
Oh yeah.
How much smack talking do the catchers do to the batters? Is that a whole dynamic? Is it allowed?
Not back then. I've never heard a whole lot of it ever, as a player or as a umpire. No, no, that doesn't happen very often.
It seems like that would be a whole technique to get into their heads with just the well-placed comment or something.
No, I think it'd be too easy to let that bat go back a little further and knock you in the head.
That's a good point.
So you're talking about a guy with a weapon. I don't think you can show a little respect.
Well, so I don't know if it's just because I played baseball and I'm used to throwing overhanded and stuff, but usually if somebody throws me a ball, I have some idea where it's going to go. Like I'm not talking like a professional pitcher, dropping and spinning, but when you watch those girls throw like an 80-mile-an-hour softball coming from underhand, I'm always thinking, how do you know where the ball's even going to go?
Well, it's totally from a different angle and different style, so it does look different, but you can get used to it too because they throw it the same way. If they always throw over underhand, but anytime it comes from a different angle, you got to get used to it. But and some of those girls can put a lot of zip on it too. It's not easy.
What was it like having the stands throw epithets your direction? There must have been moments where you were evil incarnate or whatever, when the game hinges on a call or something.
I'll tell you, I had some really scary moments, and I used to umpire men's slow pitch softball
At night?
At night in the summertime in the park, and it'd be a 9 o'clock game, and the Craigsville boys would be up on the hill
Getting liquored up a little
on
bit,
one
maybe?
side, and then the African American team from Stanton, the Booker T guys would be all up there, and about 9:30 they'd roll down off the hill ready to play a ball game, and I'm standing there, and I'm wrong. Every time there's a call, I'm wrong, according to one of them, and there were some rough nights. It's always a hard place out there. When the only friend you got is Mervyn Crowe. That's a name from the past.
Who's that?
Mervyn Crowe. Mr. Crowe was the umpire at the men's softball for probably 30, 40 years.
Wow.
And he did the fast pitch, and then he went into slow pitch. And he was a rough character.
Anybody ever come at you?
I never gotten into a fight. I had some verbal things, but the scariest one was one night with the black guys and the white guys were just, you could just tell they were mad at each other before the game started. So every play there was something going on, and I made a close call at the plate, and they were standing up and everything, and it just got, it got scary. I notified the police, and they were coming, and but I remember finally I had one of the black guys I knew from Lehigh, and he was managing them, and I just called him out and I said, we got a rough situation here. I need some help. And he looked at me and he thought it over, and he saved it. He called his guys over, and he could feel the air go out of it a little bit.
Nice.
And that saved it, but that was as close as I came to being in the middle of a brawl.
Wow.
That would have been weird.
That sounds pretty old school. That dynamic probably doesn't exist down there these days.
No, and it was definitely I hate to create it more like a black-white thing. It was more like a Friday night drunk city country thing.
Right, right.
As much as anything, just guys being guys. And there's always a couple that want to talk it up on both sides, and they're the first ones in the car when the action starts.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm down there trying to be the peacemaker, and I'm the one that's going to get beat up. But,
there's probably not, on so many levels, there's probably not that dynamic existing down. Do they still do the league down there?
no.
Oh, it doesn't even exist anymore?
No, they play out at Montgomery Hall now.
So there's some version of it.
Oh, yeah, they still play.
But even the whole idea of like getting liquored up on the hill before the game probably doesn't happen.
No, that
these
doesn't
days.
happen anymore. They don't allow the alcohol in there. Of course, they didn't back then either.
And I was going to say, I'm sure they never allowed.
They never checked the cars that much.
Everybody's sitting up there getting high now before the game.
Right.
This is the most peaceful game I've ever officiated. What are you running laughing for? This is the best time.
Yeah, it's a different drug time.
When I got older, like in high school, I just even stopped playing pickup basketball and stuff. I would still lose my temper. Just that desire to win. I finally realized it was not a good attribute for me to have. Like hard fouling somebody and looking at them, and you're like, what in the world am I upset about? We're playing in the backyard, and I'm tomahawking some guy across the shoulder because I don't want him to score a basket. So I was like, man, I just need to stop playing these pickup games.
There was no way you could do it and not do that.
I mean, if I told myself, like if we'd go somewhere and we'd be playing and just it was just like the desire to win was something that used to eat me alive. It would just be like, I remember one time we were in Richmond, we went up to U of R, and me and a couple of friends were shooting, and these guys came, like, hey, let's play a game, We'd never seen them before in our lives. And that's when, you're like, oh my God, you don't want to look bad, and game was going. And at that point, I wasn't very good. My brother was really good, and we played, and they were talking a bunch of crap, but we ended up beating them, I think my brother made a last shot to win or something, and we just walked off the court back to the cars, we got out of the car, but I was like, yeah! I'm like, yeah! We didn't want to show off. We acted like we knew we were going to win. We were like, oh my God, we won! You're so excited. But you try to act like, yeah, we knew we were going to win,
That's part of the thing with sports. Like it's even as a fan, like the loss has to be devastating, or the win isn't that jubilant.
Right.
Like it's like directly proportional. Like how emotionally invested are you?
Right.
And a lot of it you do for, for selfish reasons. So you get the payoff of the victory actually creating elation
Right.
inside of you. So that you're standing on the. I mean, there's nothing like sports. If you take a snapshot of like a living room or whatever, if there's like people standing on the furniture with their hands in the air, they're probably watching sports.
Right.
I mean, maybe there's a movie or two that could get you there, but in general, like that's sports. But there's that emotional investment that you have to have, and the dark side of it. It's like, how can you be so crushed by this defeat? And it's like watching Joe watch the Eagles, like he's just given himself to that. But you can't really have one without the other. It's like you like when you lose and it destroys you, you're like, well, maybe you shouldn't be that emotionally invested. I don't know. Do I have any?
Well, even as an adult, I've been like, over somebody's house, like a couple of couples get together, you're having some drinks, playing a board game. And somebody will just, just knock everything, and it gets real tense, Everybody's like, I mean, people just lose their shit because like they're losing in a board game or something,
Right.
And you're just like, oh, I guess we'll be leaving now, Like, no, I'm all right. And everybody, like, and
See, that just sounds purely unhealthy.
But I've
Like
been,
there's
like, a
no
couple times
reward.
like that.
Even that kind of personality, even their victory is a little tainted
Yeah.
to me. Like, because I don't know. There's
I mean, I remember a couple of times you're just sitting there like, man, what do you do? Do you just laugh it off? And, let's do something else now. Or do you, I knew where all the pieces are, put them back, I will beat you so you can't destroy the game.
the winning and losing thing. I wonder how that like ties back into where this conversation started with being in the zone and being in the pocket. Like whether or not there's people out there that are so healthy and so fully realize that they can be in grace and lose, but still appreciate the fact they were in the zone.
Right.
Like, I mean, I guess that probably happens because you just have respect for your adversary.
Oh yeah, it should happen a lot. It does happen a lot. So,
But you would think the defeat could throw you out of your senses to not realize how well you played. Like you just can't really appreciate how well you did, how much you actually were in grace, but you just didn't come out.
another side light of what you're saying, talking about, is that I always used to tell my kids when I was coaching that you ought to get as happy when you win as you do sad when you lose.
Right.
And too many athletes will work themselves into the pattern of they have to win to break even. And if they, they're not ever really happy when they win, but they hate it when they lose.
Right.
And that's not healthy.
Right.
On whatever it is you want to talk about, you ought to enjoy your wins as much as you do get upset when you lose.
I think that's just an important life lesson too.
I really
that
do
You got to
think-
celebrate your successes.
Exactly. If not, then you start going downhill and you don't see the fun of being alive.
But it's also,
I think that's so profound.
sometimes people just rub you the wrong way when you're playing them. I mean, me and my brother were very competitive whenever games we played. I might have told this story before. There was like before there was video games, there was this game, it was like a VHS tape. And it was a football game, and you'd pick your play, you'd pick your card, up the middle,
Oh
run.
my goodness! On VHS.
Well, it was played on a board, but then sometimes you'd roll a dice and you'd get like 5 yards. And then it would say, watch next play, and you'd put the VHS in and it would play. And I remember my brother was winning by like 3 points or something, and I was driving, and we used to keep time. We were serious about this shit. We had like a timer going, keep the time. And there was like maybe 10 seconds left, So I got the ball, and I was a pass play. So I threw it and it said, put on VHS tape. And it was Terry Bradshaw. Remember, there was real NFL clips. And it was Terry Bradshaw. He just scrambled around, and it was over 12 seconds. And then the ball, he threw it out of bounds or something. My brother goes, that's the end of the game. And I was like, no effing way. He knew there was 12 seconds. He'd have thrown the ball on the ground. He'd have done something. But I was like, you just gotta go by the thing. I was like, no, that's not the way the game would have worked. And my brother never said a word about it. Like he knew it drove me crazy, and he could have like ridden me about it all the time. He never did. Probably like 20 years later, I said something to him about it. He goes, man, I think about that all the time.
I think about that all.
And I was like, man, at least we can laugh about it now. He goes, man, I never even brought it up today. You were so mad. Arguing with a VHS tape. Like, that's not the way it would have happened.
You know what's just as bad as someone who's too invested in stuff is if you're playing a game with somebody that doesn't care about winning
And
at
then
all.
they beat you and it drives you
Oh,
crazy.
I mean, whatever level it is. Like you want somebody to meet your energy on
Right.
some harmonious level, like whatever it is. But I don't know, people that don't care about the rules or
Right.
I remember our neighborhood tried to do this weekly kickball game with all the kids and stuff, and we went up there, and all of a sudden I got a little possessed as we got into it, and really wanted to do great and win, and the rules like really mattered, like any, but there was this sort of like lackadaisical attitude about a lot of people, that a lot of parents are just wanted their kids to play. They didn't care about the game. They just wanted their kids to have a good time. And all of a sudden, like, who's this dude like screaming about the rule of like, that was a foul, that was foul, that was foul. Like, who cares? The
Right.
kids are, just let the kids play, let them play. And I'm just like, but the only saving grace I had from not feeling like a just complete jerk was Mike Lunt. I hope he doesn't mind me saying his name out loud. He was on the other side, mirroring me entirely. like this is like our chance to embrace our competitive selves.
right.
There's that competitiveness that is a fun drive, and it's
Right.
fun to explore, and it's no fun when someone comes in and just doesn't care about the rules or anything. It's like, oh, come on, on a certain level.
Yeah.
That was a pretty funny example of that.
We were in Nags Head one time, and my dad like played golf like all the time, and my wife never picked up a golf club. And we went to a putt-putt thing, and my dad's out there, measuring the shots, and looking at stuff, and my wife won. And you could tell, like, 2 holes left. My dad was ready to just, like, smash the thing over his leg, just get in the car and leave us all there. And so, but we all knew, so we're all like, oh my gosh, please don't let her win, And she didn't know what he was like. And so she gets hers in, and, he's like, he has that smile on his face that me and my brother knew, like, oh, that's not a real smile, He's not congratulating her because he's happy, He just wants to get home so he can go to the bathroom and pound on the wall or something. But it's scary when you see somebody like that, But like playing sports, you see that a lot, Like you can tell somebody's about ready to lose it. Like, somebody ought to shoot the ball. You don't want to drive them to the point of, coming after somebody.
How can you possibly know what the healthy version of that kind of stuff is? Competitiveness. Like there seems to be a really unhealthy version of it and a super healthy version of it.
Well, Gore Vidal, one of my thoughts for the day was a Gore Vidal quote, and he said, "It's not enough to win; someone has to lose."
Wow.
And that's an interesting observation. But a lot of these problems that you're talking about deal with that type of issue. It's not enough to win. I've got to beat your ass.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to show you that I'm better than you. And when that doesn't happen, I'm disappointed because I think I should be better than you. And where does that come in? Where, as I look at it, when I play my games, I try not to put that other person in the picture at all. I'm playing against the best player, the racquetball player in the club, and I'm trying to beat that person. I'm trying to be the best in the club, but the individual himself, I'm not trying to beat him. I'm trying to. So it's about how well I play, not how poorly or how badly I beat you, and that type of thing. So it's very possible to lose the game and walk off the field feeling great if you actually feel like you played the best you could and you did everything you could. Of course, you never do. If you lose, you always feel like there's something more I could have done. But if you feel that way, and that's the way I always treated my players and my children when they're playing a game. As long as you gave it everything you had, we don't have a problem. I never got upset with a child of mine for losing a game.
Right.
I got upset if they
didn't give it their all.
If they didn't give it their all. And it's just not the Moore way. We wouldn't do that. I was never disappointed in any of you because you always try and you don't give up and you do the best you can. And, you know, sometimes you don't win. But that's all right.
Well, it's also a thing, and this drives me crazy when they have like the sports now and they interview the losing coach whatever right after the game. They don't give these guys a chance to like calm down and get they're spouting off stuff that they don't really mean. It's like, but like that's what drives me the main thing about Trump. Just nobody, if any game we would ever play growing up or any athlete, pro athlete, people don't hold that against you. They don't judge you because you lost the game. Trump can't let it go. Just say I lost. It's fine. Nobody hates you because you lost. This whole thing about, oh my God, if I had a kid like that would, oh, they cheated. I'd be like, God, nobody cheated you. You just lost. Just accept the loss and move on. It's like, I mean, I understand like when it happens, you know, you're full of anger and the referees were terrible and all that. That's when you get all those bad quotes, you know, from these coaches and players. If you let them think about it for 2 days, they would calm down and say, yeah, we could have done this, we could have done that. That's just you know, but they just accept, you know, we lost the game, we lost the election, we lost whatever we tried to do, you know. That's more important than any victory, you know. Just being able to accept that you weren't the best at everything you ever did.
Yeah, it's not usually going to be true that you're the best at everything. There's several areas that I'm not the best in.
I've had a lot of interesting conversations over the years about competitiveness in arts, in songwriting, and for me in songwriting, because I was always very competitive to a certain extent. I wanted to be the best, or whatever that meant, but I talked to some artists, and some artists were completely against competitiveness. Like, it should all just be supportive. Like, how could you, the idea that you could see it competitively was shocking to them and saddening. They're like, what, that's just a terrible take. I mean, I've definitely been humbled by some other people. I'm like, oh, maybe that is ridiculous. But then again, with some of my more closer friends, colleagues in the craft, they're as competitive as I am to a certain extent. We can bond on that level. Like Willie will admit 100% when he's trying to up me. And it's like, you know, like John Lennon and Paul McCartney, they push each other to a higher, that competitiveness actually pushes you to do stuff that you could never have achieved otherwise. Sure. There is no generous, supportive version of that creates the same song or the same art, that you actually fuel off that competitiveness. And so it's a really interesting dynamic. And in fact, like the ones that like wanted to prove they were better than me or whatever, those are my best friends. The ones that just
it's like an inspiration almost.
It's a drive and an inspiration. It's a one up. Like, oh, I see what you did there. Oh man, how did you do that? Like, okay, and then your whole soul is like doing all these calculations now. Like you're not even conscious of it, but every fiber of your being is trying to process how you're going to respond to that challenge. But it's interesting, just the different takes and different conversations on competitiveness and I don't know, just that idea, because there are some people that believe that competitiveness has absolutely no place.
Yeah, and I think I think for some people that's true, and for other people it's not. I think people work, they have different forms of motivation, for one thing, as you say that. But I think
And inspiration.
and ways of being inspired and ways, just to create the art itself. I was trying to take what you were saying in terms of your art and put it into something like racquetball. Because the first thing I say is, if there's a racquetball player that's better than me, then that's wonderful because I'm going to learn from him. So that's in the art world, I would think the same thing. If I see that guy's a great songwriter, I'm not gonna. I want to beat him, but I'm also going to steal everything he's got.
Right.
And he's going to make me better, and I respect that about him too. So, there's that part of it. Whereas, the essence of competition is cooperation, and sometimes that comes.
Wait, elaborate on that.
Well, I used to, when I coached tennis, like, you hit the ball over the net. Do you want the guy to return it? No, because you want to win the point. But if he doesn't ever return it, do you ever get any better? No. So you want him to return it, and you want to hit it back about 10 times, and then when you can do something, then try something different. In other words, use that experience to learn, and that's what you do when you're learning from your mistakes. That's how you get better, whether it be art or racquetball or tubing.
I wonder how they even came. How long have people been around before we determined we were competitive? Like, you think like cavemen were like who could throw a stone the farthest?
I think competitive, with stone being something that'll kill something you can eat, and if you kill it, you get to eat it. That's where it comes down to, is being successful.
Well, I understand
in the
that's a
hunt.
skill, but like, what if one caveman sees a guy throw a stone like 100 yards? What makes what makes the other caveman say, "Well, I can throw it 110 yards"?
Because they want to beat them.
Yeah, so that's just. But I wonder when they like, what was the first sport where they just said, "Wow, we all have this weird thing that I want to beat your ass, and you want to beat
But
mine."
definitely be like the praise of the community would have to fall in there. Like if someone could throw it 100 yards and no one had before, everybody would notice that, like, oh, that's unique.
Right.
Like, wow, you could do that. And then
Right.
everybody else is watching like, well, holy moly, if I could throw it 101, I'll get this attention.
Right. Or like, let's say checkers was the very first game invented. Let's just imagine it was. And so instead of it just being like this is a fun way to pass the time, when did one person be like, oh my God, I can't lose another one, When did the competitive thing kick in, where instead of it just being a way to pass an hour and, shake hands and you go milk a cow and, mow the field or whatever, when did it become like, no, we're going to play a second game? Best 2 out of 3, when did it become you didn't walk away till you've been playing all day and like won more games than the other guy?
I don't know. I think that's part of our human nature.
Yeah.
I think it goes in different ways. It's part of what it means to be a human. I'd like to be the best human I can be. So that means if there's 2 things and we're both doing them, I want to do it better than you. I think that's pretty normal.
But like when the Romans, was there ever a winner? Or like if they're out there fighting lions, then the person always die? Like he never won. Did they ever win?
Sure, they let them win till next week.
Oh, so it wasn't like a fight to the death all the time?
No.
They wouldn't just keep throwing a lion?
Well, I mean, there was always a winner, and they'd let them go, and they'd feed them, and then send them out next week.
Well, the original Gore Vidal quote was, in order for someone to win, someone has to die. We've come a long way.
Yeah,
That's right.
exactly.
It might have some roots in biology and evolution too, like the winning
Well, natural selection.
part of survival. That's
Oh yeah, it's all a tribal thing, and even in the family, if you're the one bringing home the deer for the family to eat, in other words, if you're the best hunter, you're gonna be the most successful for the tribe.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's always a reward punishment thing going on with a lot of that.
Who wants to wrestle now?
I want arm wrestle you right now. We can just flip coins or something.
I mean, like in high school, they like for 6 weeks you would do like wrestling, and that was always my biggest fear. Get out there with one of these psycho guys, that just wants to win no matter what. You're just like, all right, let him pin me so I can just get away from this guy. Otherwise, he's gonna break my arm. Like, oh, okay, I get.
Sweep the leg.
You got the coach over there sort of laughing. Oh, this guy's a terror. Go out there and see what you can do, Kyle. No, this guy's nuts. Oh.
I just had a flashback of a memory when you just described that. 8th grade, Lee High School, wrestling, just like you're saying, and one of the Currys, the potato chip Currys.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was about 2 years older than me, and they were doing the wrestling thing, and he got my head and his leg, he had a leg lock on my head.
Oh, man.
I'm an 8th grader, and he's got my ears boxed.
Oh, my God.
And I thought I was going to die. I'll never forget it. I couldn't even call out. I was just like,
Well,
that's a great memory. Totally defenseless.
I didn't even know you wrestled.
Well, it was
No,
phys ed.
Yeah.
Oh.
I didn't even know. I didn't know I wrestled either.
Yeah, but it's like a phys ed, you did like
But I didn't know I
softball.
wrestled Mr. Curry. Good Lord.
Yeah, but that was always the thing, like you were, because running or softball, whatever, you felt like you had a chance. But then you would always be like, that guy over there's been first 3 classes, and he's been waiting for gym, and so you can get that wrestling. And you're like, arr, arr. Come on, coach, you're next.
Oh, yeah, that was a terrible experience.
Is he still around?
I'm sure he is, yeah. I haven't seen him for a while, but kitchen cooked potato chips.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah.
They don't do Martins, do they?
They've combined with Martins. They're not, Martins, I think, bought them. Martins was up the road, up in Middletown, and Kitchen Cook was down here, but I think they've come together.
Gotcha.
But for years, they were 2 separate companies.
And have we talked the whole time about about competitive? It's 8 o'clock.
Oh, my goodness. I feel like we could keep going. I still have questions, but we might want to move on to the bird before we run out of time.
Well, you wanted to speak of a few things, right? Besides getting your ears pinned to your
Well,
head.
we were talking about plugging things and advertising. I wanted to start some advertising.
About things we like.
The 2 that I had on my mind is something for people in the city of Stanton to do tomorrow night. That's Ciders from Mars, and they're having some music down there at 7 o'clock. And it's a band called Wax Bats.
Oh, wow. Who's that?
It's Jimmy Kivligan, and I believe Steve Sutton's playing with them. Is Jason playing with them?
I don't know the drummer's name.
I think Jason left. He's not with them now.
Yeah, they have
But our friend Jane Firkin is a guitar player. And so we were talking about plugging her gig tomorrow night, and we just did.
Awesome. 7 o'clock at
7
Ciders
o'clock.
from Mars.
Yeah. And
free show.
Wax Bats.
yeah, Wax Bats, and just to see Jimmy Kivligan out in public, of course.
Just see you out in public.
And I'm not guaranteed, but I'm going to try to drop by. But I've already.
You're actually out in public.
I mean,
more
it'll
than
probably.
I am these days. You're actually out in public more than I am these days.
Well, you're
It's
doing.
not as rare of a
You're
sight.
doing better.
And since you like poetry, I don't know if you saw their first show, but Jimmy actually does some poetry.
Oh no, I
Oh,
didn't
wow.
see
that. He wrote.
It's so terrible. I hope he did and not, didn't steal it from somebody. I think it's supposed to be terrible. It's not terrible, but it has a humorous,
Gotcha.
it's not, you know, he's not.
That
up
wasn't
there.
your competitiveness.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. He wasn't like trying to be Wordsworth. Up there. He was looking for some laughs. But it's a couple of spoken word things like that. Yeah.
And the other one was we want to talk about Art Hive, which is the new artist possibilities, the endless possibilities that can happen there. They've got several things going on. I think they're having their opening.
Yep. Grand opening Saturday from 11 to 5, I believe.
Oh, this Saturday. Oh, cool.
Spring Hill Road, right down near the park.
So we're going to do some work there. They like Jabber Jawn, and I think we're going to try to help them out and sell some of our products there
Nice.
as soon as we get some.
We have some real estate back here. We could put up like a little Art Hive ad, or I don't know. Maybe we
Yeah,
could have a little.
that's a good idea.
Very good people running that place.
Yeah.
They've
Are
been
they,
up-
are they? Who are they? Are they Stanton locals or?
the Schneiders, I think Kirsten, and
Are they going to have regular hours, or is it sort of?
you know, I was just asking some friends about that. They're not really sure. I think they've been open for a while. I think they're just seeing how things go. But they've got a lot of classes coming up.
It's going to be a lot of classes and a community center of sorts, but also like a shop.
Yeah, local
Or you can
artists.
buy art supplies
Local artists
and-
have their stuff.
Yeah,
in there,
it's kind of like people bring their extra art supplies. It's like a recycling thing for people, and get better prices and stuff like that.
But it's where the old restaurant were, and the cooking, the stoves and everything are still there. So they have cooking classes.
Oh, fun.
And they'll have like meals during the classes, and
Yeah,
And from what I understand, if you have any talent and want to do a class, they're open for people
A
coming
workshop
in.
of some sort or another.
yeah. So it should be a lot.
Yeah.
We'll have more about that as we go along.
Very cool. Saturday, 11 to 5. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
That's right down on Spring Hill Road, right across
Yeah.
the street from Queen City Brewery.
Yeah.
Very cool. Just a hop, skip, and a jump from the duck pond down there.
Yep.
You can leave there, go to the corner store and get some duck food, and walk down. It's fun. I've fed the ducks twice. When my friend from New Jersey comes down, her kids want to feed the ducks. So last year, me and the little boy were in there. We just walked in, didn't talk to anybody, and we put 2 bags of duck food up. And this guy there said, "Oh, I'll buy the food for you." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you. That's nice." Like just some guy doing some kind thing for us. So that stuck with me. I told Margie and stuff. I was like, "Yeah, that's cool." So this time they came down. We went to Waynesboro. We went to some restaurant with the kids. And the woman carded me, the waitress carded me. And she's like, "Oh, the fountain of youth, gosh, how do you look so young and stuff?" Just kidding around. So we go in to buy the duck food. This time it's her. And she goes, "There he is, the fountain of youth. I'm buying your duck food." So I'm like, man, I get duck food for free all the time.
Isn't that
I
funny?
know, so I've only bought it twice. I haven't even bought it at all. The 2 times I've gone down there to get duck food, somebody's paid.
Well, that's funny.
What is the duck food?
It's just like a bag. It's like some kind of
Little
seed.
pellets.
Yeah.
Pellets. Oh, they
It's like
float?
a little while, yeah. It's the same thing. They feed them in bulk when they feed them in the morning.
But if you go in there and look pitiful, I guess people buy it for you. They figure I don't have 75 cents in my pocket.
It's the same stuff they have at the feeder, at the duck pond.
Oh, they have a little 25
25-cent
No.
thing.
Yeah.
But I never have any quarters, so.
I remember that's what we used to save the end of the Wonder Bread, the heels or whatever, to take down to the ducks.
Yep.
Not supposed to do that anymore.
No.
Now, are you old enough to remember when the park had like the deer and the ostriches and all that?
I feel like
Not
there was.
ostriches,
I feel like
but
there was I
peacocks.
remember the deer for sure. The peacock. I feel like there was bears.
Yeah, there was a bear right up there in that little tiny cave.
Yeah, there was a
That's where
bear.
they used to keep a bear.
By the train. Yeah.
That was a long time. They
I remember
more
that,
recently they kept raccoons there.
Oh right.
They had a whole family of raccoons there. But there is a long time ago they did have a bear in there.
I remember that bear. It was too small of a place for a bear.
Yeah.
Holy moly, we've grown a lot since the 80s. I can tell you that much.
But the train still runs.
Hey Heather, I'm just seeing your name in the chat. Sorry, I haven't been looking at the chat too much. So good to see you, and Swaby. Wonderful to see you all. So what bird did you bring us this time?
Well, I thought we'd go with the bird that the family name. We got a new
I met my new niece yesterday for the first time.
Yeah, we got I got a new granddaughter on last Friday, and her name is Phoebe Jo.
Phoebe Jo Moore.
And she's a beautiful.
What a great name.
What a great name, beautiful baby. And we all saw her. Nathan and Daniel brought his crew over yesterday, and we went out and saw the.
4 days old.
Wow.
A 4-day-old
It was
human
a cute.
being.
She is the most precious. I saw her.
Competitive?
Yeah, super. I'll tell you what.
I
You
saw
can
her.
see it.
Yeah, I saw her on
Competitive
Saturday,
streak.
and yeah, she's precious. But that is a kind of a family. You know, we haven't asked Joe about exactly where the name came from, but we do all know that the Phoebe is in our family. Part we all grew up with the Phoebes on the front porch, and so the Phoebe is. We'll go ahead and jump into the Phoebe. Then we won't stop talking about that little baby. And we'll talk about a bird. And it was always the first bird back for us to tell us it was spring. They would come back and not just like a bluebird or a robin just show up, but they would always come back and get their nesting area. And they always had a nesting area. And there were two places that they nested at where we were raising the boys out in the country. And one was under a bridge there at the creek when they're crossing the river. There's a little bridge, and they would nest up under there. So you'd walk across, and the Phoebe would fly out. And they're little fly catchers, and where's my book?
Right down here.
But the Phoebe will, they fly, they sit on a twig, they catch bugs with their mouth in the air, and they feed a lot of mosquitoes, and they really feed a lot of the bugs that bother people, so they're really good to have around. But they're very comfortable around people, and invariably like to build around houses and things. So
I wonder why that is.
I don't know.
I don't think I've even heard of a Phoebe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's Phoebe.
Like a colorful bird or
No, they're not very colorful. They're brown, and they have a white belly and just a brown top. I'll find it here for you.
They sound like a friendly bird.
They're a very nice bird. They're small, about the size of a bluebird.
Does their call sound anything like Phoebe? Is that why they're called that? Or
The Phoebe, the word Phoebe comes from a sound they make. It is a Phoebe-like call. Yep, you're exactly right. Oh.
And these are native to here or all over the United States?
They're native to here, and the eastern United States. They do migrate, so they're not here in the winter time, and that's why, of course, they come back in the spring and they establish they will come back to the same nesting areas, and so the ones on the porch might, be families that have been there for a long time, and I'm having trouble finding Phoebes.
Now, wouldn't it be cool if you had, like, say you lived out there and you had a Phoebe nest under the bridge, then you went to Florida to live for the summer, and those birds would come to where you went for the summer. Wouldn't that be cool?
Well, it could happen.
Man, I'm gonna write let's write a children's story about that with music.
About what now? I was looking for the song.
Like we'll have a nest of phoebes that live out at the farm under the bridge, and then for during the summer when it gets cold here, we move to Florida, and those birds, without really knowing it, come to where we live, so we can. It's like, hey, those are the same phoebes out there. It'll be a book with CD.
I like it. It's a little quiet. Can you hear that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I've heard that sound, yeah. I thought it was my joints creaking though when I was moving around. It does sort of sound like Phoebe.
It's funny, the categories of sounds that it makes. There's the song, and then there's the flight song, and then there's calls. Those are the different categories of Phoebe sounds. I like that they have a different song they make when they're flying. The flight song of the Phoebe, of the Eastern Phoebe.
I don't know why I can't find them.
You need a baseball card in there to mark the spot.
I should have done that, definitely. I'm sorry, this is very incompetent. I can't find it. Well, it's the weirdest thing because it's a weird bird book that I've been bragging about doesn't have an index.
Oh no! Does it have a table of contents?
No. It has other pictures. All right. Y'all talk about something.
Yeah, we'll talk about something.
I'll be right back.
Quick game of tic-tac-toe.
I'm not competitive, but I'll bet you it takes me 45 seconds to find it. How much time do you get?
Were you ever competitive with your writing?
Oh my gosh.
What would that even mean to you?
You know, I'm not competitive, but I'm very fearful. Like, I would never take like a writing class or anything where you had to get read in front of people. That would petrify me that somebody would say something bad about it. At Blue Ridge Community College, the little bit of time I went there, we had to write, I took some writing class, and I wrote some stupid thing. The teacher, I remember the woman said, "Oh, we've got someone here that's really creative. Like, you didn't even follow the assignment." And she said that, I was like, "Oh my God, I got to focus and do what's expected of me."
Were there other zines that were going on back in the bold print days that you were
Oh my gosh,
competitive
yeah.
with?
No, I was just in all of them, and some of these people would be just, I remember when I was still in high school doing it, and this is one of the highlights of my life. This was no comparison of talent or anything, but there was a magazine, a little zine in Michigan. Back then you had to get them all through the mail and stuff, and I got it. I was flipping through it, and there was a page had 2 of my poems on it, and then the page facing it was Grandmaster Flash. They had like some of his stuff. I was like, oh my God! Like, Paige, when they close it, we're smack dab together,
That's so cool.
I don't know. I'm really fumbling.
Yeah, some of those zines back in the day were just, oh my God, I'd read them and just be like, oh my God, just these people are so creative and so. And then there was a zine in Canada. This guy like tore me apart for being too sensitive and being too serious. He would ask for like certain things that you would just find in a community, and then he would like put like a collection of it. And he asked for like missing pet posters, like you tear down off the wall or something. And I would always send him whatever, I was trying to get into his zine, and I told him I just can't do it. It would break my heart if somebody's pet didn't get found because I ripped it off the wall. And he was like, oh man, what a baby. Just take it down.
There it is.
Look at that thing, beautiful.
Phoebes, are there different kinds of Phoebe?
Well, that's the black Phoebe. It's out west, I believe. But ours is the eastern Phoebe. We don't have a northern south, but we have an eastern
Oh, good.
Phoebe. But it's in the flycatcher family, and it's the smallest of the flycatchers.
Because they actually catch flies?
Oh, yeah. They're famous for sitting out on a little twig and flying out and catching a bug and coming back to that twig and sitting there.
Oh, wow.
You sit by the river. But if you just make that, instead of black, make it brown, and that's what a phoebe looks like.
There's a singer now called Phoebe Bridges. You were talking about there's them living under the bridge.
I look at the nest up there. It seems like there's a lot of moss or something in that.
They use moss and they use mud. They like mud from the river. So there are a lot of times they're around rivers, but they don't have to be. But,
I'm going totally off track here, but how do they even identify birds as a phoebe, or how do they identify birds as a cardinal? Like, 300 years ago, cardinal must have had 500 different names depending on where you live.
oh yeah.
There's the barn bird. There's the the tree bird. There's the the old red. How do they ever get it to everybody calls it a cardinal?
You have to have somebody like John James Audubon going out and the first person, and of course a lot of them are Indian names. So
Okay.
if the Indian name, if they liked the Indian name, if it sounded good, they used it. So a lot of the birds have, or a lot of American terms in general are
Right.
Indian names. But it was up to Europeans. Linnaeus is famous for the taxonomy of a lot of animals, but Audubon, and even this guy, Sibley, I mean, these early, they were called taxonomists because nothing had a name. They were naming everything.
Oh wow.
So that only goes back about 400 years or so. And they used,
Like the King commissions.
yeah, like the English wanted everything named when they were they were the imperial power that was going around the world, and part of what they did was fascinated by the different species of animals that lived in all these places they were conquering. Not just the human beings, but the other critters too.
Mm-hmm.
But so it was. But like if you were German, you'd have all different names during that period of time. You
Right.
had German taxonomists naming it differently.
Right.
So at some point they all had to get together and become scientists. And
Yeah.
that's where the Latin and the Greek came in.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Now, does the phoebe eat while it's flying, or it catches it and sits back down and eats, or you don't know?
It can eat while it's flying. It can just catch them and swallow them whole. I mean, they're not chewing. They're just swallowing. So whether they swallow it, they can gulp it while they're flying or wait till they get
Gosh.
back and
How do
turn
they
it up.
feed the babies?
Like Jonah and the whale.
Regurgitate.
They regurgitate.
They regurgitate so then they can control how much goes in. Most of us have that image of them catching something and sticking that in the baby's mouth, but it's more that they catch it and eat it and have a little place there, and then they can just throw up into it doesn't sound good, but it works.
There was, I probably shouldn't tell this story. It's an unfortunate way I learned about that was by running upon some friends about 4 or 5 in the morning at High Sierra, and they came up to me and they're like, "Have you ever baby birded?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "Do you want a baby bird?" And I was like, "What is going on here?" They had spent the last couple hours pouring drinks into their mouth and then spitting into their friend's mouth.
Oh wow.
So he took a big swig of something. He was like, "Come here." I wasn't about to do it, but I did see several people get baby birded after me. But that's where I first learned about this entire concept. And I probably shouldn't have shared that, but I did. So
It'll never be the same to me.
Were they all flying when they
But if
did it?
anybody comes up to you and asks if you want a baby bird, you probably don't. Or maybe you do. I mean, I don't want to assume too
Well, I
much.
think it depends on who's asking for one thing.
I'm gonna try to do that from at Ciders from Mars tomorrow.
Yeah.
Line me up a couple of ciders, my baby bird, everybody in here.
So what's the lifespan of a Phoebe?
I didn't ever see that. I would guess probably 2 years,
Oh wow.
2 to 3 years. But
Would they return? So do they migrate?
they migrate. They come back to the same area.
How far do they migrate?
Not as far as a lot of them. I think they just go into the southern part of the country and maybe into Mexico, but not. They don't go as far. And
Now, I never even thought of this. How much is like a cardinal or a blue jay weigh? Do they weigh a pound? They don't even weigh that much.
no, cardinal might weigh a half a pound,
Wow.
maybe 3/4 of a pound.
Would the Phoebe return to the same porch after its migration? Would it come back
They'll come back to the same area. Yeah.
same area?
And if that porch is open, they'll probably use that porch. But you got to realize there's competition there, because there's the parents from the year before, but there's also the children want to go back to the home turf too. So, but they will work from that area and work their way out, take on another territory that way. But we've always had them down in the bridge too. And I guess it's 2 different families, but we've always had the Phoebes on the porch. We had them this year. We've always had Phoebes at the bridge too. So it's a very common bird where we live, and Joe grew up with them. And
Is that just like first come, first serve? Like a Phoebe will come in and claim that porch, and then another Phoebe would come along and be like, "Oh, someone beat me to it," or
well, and they might fight or whatever. That's what they're doing. You know, a lot of these behaviors that birds do are either to attract a mate or to warn a territorial imperative. Is that's called, and it warns people that this is my territory. You shouldn't be here. But you see, like mockingbirds are very territorial, so you'll see mockingbirds chasing each other. Hummingbirds are terrible. You're feeding hummingbirds, you're feeding the little hummingbird will come and boom, they'll be chasing each other around. You're saying, why can't you just get along?
competitiveness.
I mean, how are you using
What do
all
you,
that
why
energy?
do you think that is?
It's all natural selection. It's all survival of the fittest. It's dog eat dog world.
Right.
Now, however many of these we've done, like 25, let's say we talked about birds for 25 episodes, every bird builds a nest. How come you don't just walk around in the neighborhood and just trip over nests everywhere you go? You would think everywhere you would look, you would see a nest. Do they dissolve or break apart? Or?
That's a good question.
Most of them are pretty well hidden, for one thing. So, you know, that pine tree out in the house there might be 3 nests in there, but I couldn't find them because it's too, you know, the birds don't build them to
attract your
robins
attention.
really don't care. You know, they'll build them out in the open, and obviously Phoebes build them right where you can see them. But a lot of the nests are well hidden, and you know, because of predators. And
Right. But do you think a nest is built so well it would survive in winter and stuff, or is it just like fall apart and it's gone by the
most
next?
of them wear down, but there's still something there. And a lot of times they'll just start from there and rebuild it. Basically,
Right.
Now they'll repurpose what's
yeah,
already there.
They'll take what they've got and then just start over too. And
Now, what was the one you said that builds it by chewing up the stuff and putting it on the wall? What was that bird?
the barn swallow.
That's crazy.
That is crazy.
But a lot of the bird that we're talking about now, the Phoebe, they use a lot of mud too. So they will use old barn swallow nest, and if they want to build in a barn, or if they see an old nest, they'll just rework it to their style. But there is some of that going on too.
Now, is
They're
there,
a very nice bird. They're a very pleasant bird.
It's pretty wild that they can tell. Like they come back and like, oh, that's an old nest. Like it's. Whereas if they come in and it's a newly created nest, they're like, oh, that's new. That's somebody. I gotta go find a different
Right.
place. It seems to be a certain level of discerning what's going on there
Right.
with all that.
now, like if you wanted to attract a certain, like let's say you wanted cardinals in your yard or blue jays, is there science or something that determines what, like, are certain birds to attracted to a certain type of bird nest? Like, I mean, a bird feeder or like bird house?
Oh, yes. It's all like with a bird house, it depends on the size of the hole. Because, a little bird doesn't want a big hole because then a starling can get in it. And so, they want one the right size so that only he can get in there, you're more likely to get him there than an English sparrow.
Oh, so they'll basically pick their own size. If it's too big for them, they're like, oh, I don't even want to get in there.
Right.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right. So size and where it is, and some of them want to be up high, and some of them want to be low, and some of them want to be protected, and some of them want to be in a tree, and some of them want to be in a hole. So you get everything. But
Man.
different sized birdhouses will attract different things.
Now, what are like those bird houses you see like in the park, like a big tall pole, and it's like
Those are specifically for the purple martins. When they have a lot of different like apartment houses.
All right.
Those are down at the beach. I know only one person that's ever had purple martins, and he was in Waynesboro. He had a purple martin house and actually had a colony. It's just a colony of like in the swallows, the barn swallows. The purple martin is a type of swallow.
So several families would live in those things?
But yes, several families.
Wow.
You could have like 30 different breeding pairs in one. I always loved
that's
it. But
fascinating.
I used to be down at Virginia Beach when we were travel. You could see the purple martins in the houses down there.
Now, are they attracted to the house, or that's just up in the air all by itself?
Both. The fact that it's isolated, and they do like to be, the purple martin, unlike a lot of birds, don't want to be around other birds, but these birds like to build in colonies. They probably built in holes along cliffs, banks, and so they're used to company.
Right.
They like company. So that's the purple martins. But we don't have those. I mean, they travel, but they live down at the beach more. But
I like that name. Are they purple, or that's just the name?
oh yeah, very purple, very pretty.
Iridescent.
Yep, definitely.
Well, I've thought of several leaving songs I could have done on the competitive theme, but I don't think I would remember any of them. Make Up the Rules came to mind. I Can Never Win would have been a good one, but I feel like it's been so long since I played any of these songs. I'm not nearly as competitive as I used to be. Losing Folks Fest, Heather was mentioning that one at one point. She said, what did she say? Remember when you wrote a song entitled Losing Folks Fest? I called you out quick on that. You never lose when you write a great song. But I think even though I've done it before, and it goes against my grain to be redundant, but I feel like it's just too fitting to not end with the Phoebe poem today.
I agree. I thought of that. And I think Phoebe Joe deserves another listen.
Does this have a chorus we can sing?
Not really. I gotta get your spoons over here next to you, though. Sitting in the shades of green, chickadee trills and the air is wet. I pet my dog and he knows what I mean. This is as good as I get. The radio announces explosions one by one. The bees are buzzing in their hive. Dad is laughing up in his room, and I'm alive. I believe in the actions of this Phoebe, who's built its clever nest upon my porch. A peaceful rain drops, and it's hard to believe in war. Joe is calling up his girlfriend. Nana's baking a pie. I've been reading Thoreau, living up in a tree, not really wondering why. Oh, the sweet beauty of a flower's poverty, the magic starry nights. I named the gray squirrel Pedro and just been letting the bed bugs bite. I believe in the actions of this Phoebe, who's built its clever nest upon my porch. A peaceful rain drops, and it's hard to believe in war. Yeah, I've been throwing logs onto the fire and preaching to that cricket choir. Smoking an old corncob pipe, and soon these apples will be ripe. We'll be picking apples and mandolins, picking our noses, picking our friends, picking ticks off the dogs now and again. Yep, picking. Grinning. I believe in the actions of this Phoebe, who's built its clever nest upon my porch. A peaceful rain drops, and it's hard to believe in war. Everybody, last line. A peaceful rain drops, and it's hard to believe in war. Thank you so much. Love you all. Jabber John signing off. See you next time.
Hope you like the new set. This is all Nathan.
What now?
I don't know.
We all just froze.
Are we clear?
The AI has gone wrong. They're not moving anymore.
It turned against us. Tricked me into thinking it was my friend.